Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars. Topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is my good friend, my buddy, my basketball amigo, Mark Souza.
What up?
How are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. There's been some good basketball games that's happened over the last few days, some trades.
Not just games. Oh, well,
a trade.
The Jimmy Butler Blockbuster trade has finally happened. Instead of taking the optional 4 first-round picks or the Eric Gordon NNA and 2 first-round picks that Rockets are offering for Jimmy Butler, they decided to go with something else.
Yes, they went with the Philadelphia 76ers offer, not the Rockets, not the Heat, not the Clippers.
The Rockets offer seemed really good, and I'm surprised he didn't take it, but he didn't. And the trade was, there is 1 draft pick in it, and that's a second-round pick. Mm-hmm. So, by all things considered...
2022, right?
It just says a future selection, a future second-round pick.
So, let's break it down. Did the Wolves make a good trade?
I don't think so. I really don't. What do you I want to hear what you think first, but...
I think they made a trade for the now and not really a trade for the future. I could be wrong on that. I just think that we don't know for sure if they were ever offered 4 first-round picks. We know they were offered at least 2 first-round picks and Eric Gordon from the Rockets. We know that. That was revealed yesterday, but if 4 first-round picks were on the table, I might have done that trade just because you really, really boost your franchise for the next decade. If you get 4 picks in 7 years, I mean, that's really nice.
I don't think the owner or the president, and the head coach was not thinking about the future. He was thinking about more of himself and to win now and keep his job.
Right.
That's my opinion about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they get 2 players now, and I say, I'm kind of leaving Bayless out of this. I don't really know if he fits in with this team, but Saric and Covington are the main pieces here. Saric is a nice young player. He offers some length. He offers some outside shooting. And Covington is that 3-and-D type player where he's going to come in, shoot a lot of threes for you, and defend. He's a super, super good wing defender. So there is something here. I think the Wolves potentially added 2 starters, at least 1, but possibly 2. You could definitely play Saric with Karl Anthony Towns. But, maybe Wiggins still starts and Covington comes off the bench. But they got a little deeper. But, yeah, they lose Jimmy Butler, of course. So that's going to hurt. For this year, though, I think it might be a decent move. What do you think for this year?
Well, let me tell you the details of the trade, shall I?
Sure.
Jimmy Butler is traded to 76ers. 76ers also received Justin Patton, who just seems like a bench role player just for salary purposes. I'm not sure why he was a part of that trade. Mm-hmm. But the Timberwolves get Robert Covington, Dario Saric, Jared Bayless, and a future second-round pick. Mm-hmm. I understand he's trying to get players to help him win now, but these players I don't think are going to contribute as much as he thinks that they are going to contribute.
Well, we do know that Thibodeau likes defensive-minded players. So Covington, I think, is a player that he values higher than maybe other teams or other coaches do, but I think that no matter what trade that the Wolves were going to make, they were always going to get the lesser named players in the trade, right? Like Jimmy Butler was going to be the big name. So whoever they got back, we'd all say, oh, they didn't get enough, unless it had a couple first-round picks involved. But I think Covington and Saric are decent players. I don't think they're terrible at all. They do add something to this roster. But does this help the Wolves make the playoffs this year? They needed to change something. Whether you think Jimmy Butler is a good player or not, that team was obviously broken.
I don't see them making the playoffs, to be honest with you.
It's hard. The West is really tough right now.
Yeah, and bottom line is, like, you cost this team a big future, the president did, the head coach and president. And that's why I think you should never have the president and head coach be the same person. You gotta have someone that can counter the other.
Yeah, because the Thibodeau's thinking about now, right? Like, you have to have somebody with more oversight. But that doesn't necessarily mean this trade will be bad for Minnesota. This trade could work out,
honestly,
right?
between me and you, I would expect the Eric Gordon and Nate and 2 first round, not just if the 4th first round picks weren't good enough, Eric Gordon and Nate and a second 2 first round picks would have been more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
No, why didn't you take that? Like, what did you have against Houston that made you not take that pick, not take that trade?
Maybe because they didn't get any defense back. You have to realize that Thibodeau loves defensive players. And Eric Gordon is a good offensive player, but is he worth anything on the defensive end? Probably not. Nene, a decent player, but he's also older. He's at the end of his career. The 2 first-round picks would be the real thing there. But again, we're talking about, if I'm looking at it from will this help me win today, I think that the trade that they made with Saric and Covington is actually better than Gordon and Nene for today, for this season. But obviously, those 2 first-round picks make that attractive. So I agree with you there that I might have done that deal instead.
Yeah, but I think everyone would have, no?
Mm-hmm. The Pelicans, sounds like the Wizards were in, but the Pelicans offered Mirotic and a first-round pick. That's actually an interesting trade, too. But Mirotic and Saric, I think, are similar. Saric has more upside, of course. But we'll see. So, you are unimpressed with this trade, as I take it. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. You would have rather had, if 4 first-round picks were on the table, would you rather have had that trade? Well, you're kind of punting the season, though, if you take that trade, which is okay. I'm just saying.
But that's a very attractive look. I don't think anyone's ever going to trade. That's a Herschel Walker-esque trade, no?
Yeah, because the Rockets, you can see the Rockets being a really bad basketball team in 2 or 3 years.
But still, that's still 4 first-round picks.
Right, and those draft picks could be high because the Rockets could be bad in 3-4 years if Chris Paul at that point will be retired.
Harden might be gone. You never know.
Harden, yeah. I mean, Harden is, around 30 years old now?
He could slip up. Like, the upside to having 4 first-round picks from a team is endless. Even if they do well all 4 seasons, they win the NBA championship 4 years in a row, you're still getting 2 first-round selections in a draft with only 2 rounds.
Are you surprised, though, that Minnesota makes a trade with Philadelphia and they don't get Fultz in that deal? I mean, not saying that Fultz is a great player, but you would think that
they would get a first-round overall selection,
a first-round pick or Fultz at least, right? I mean, that's where my problem is with this trade is that
Fultz hasn't been playing well, so I understand why not going for him. But I mean, you should have taken someone with that much hype coming out of college.
Yeah,
that could still potentially help your team.
I just think that this trade could have accomplished a couple things here. Like, okay, so we talked about Thibodeau wanting to win now, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. But they could have made a trade here where it helps them win now and sets them up for the future. Because if they do get Fultz or they get a first-round pick in addition to Sarge and Covington, you kind of cross both of those things off, right? Like, this trade will help us in the future, and this trade will help us today. But they didn't accomplish both of those. They accomplished the goal of helping us maybe today. But it's hard to see that this move will actually help them make the playoffs in this Western Conference. We already know how deep this conference is. So you say no, they're not making the playoffs, right?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
You know.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, I agree with you. For me, I had them missing the playoffs when we did our preseason predictions. That was with Jimmy Butler, but obviously I kind of had in the back of my mind that he wouldn't be on the team by midseason. But yeah, he's gone. Minnesota's at 5-9 right now. They have the second worst record in the National Basketball Association as of today. So, Jimmy Butler, he's finally gone. Do you think that Karl Anthony Towns and maybe Wiggins and other players will play better now? Because there was obviously tension in the building.
Yes, there was. It felt like almost like a mutiny. No,
it definitely just seemed like someone had to go.
Yeah, the town wasn't big enough for the two of us to have a feel.
Would you have personally rather trade Karl Anthony Towns or Jimmy Butler?
No, Jimmy Butler.
Really?
I think Karl Anthony Towns is a huge. He has so much future that it's just looking good for him.
Do you think that Karl Anthony Towns is a franchise player?
He can,
like a cornerstone.
He can be a huge addition. I can see it.
My problem with Karl Anthony Towns is not his talent. I just think that he lacks a lot of leadership ability.
I see what you're getting at.
So here's my thing, Jeff, and try to understand my point here.
Okay.
I don't think that he's limited in talent, but if you're telling me that Karl Anthony Towns is my cornerstone franchise piece for the next 5 years, it makes me worried. That worries me, right? Let's take DeMarcus Cousins, for example.
Okay, I got him right here in my hand.
You know how he was. He was with the Kings. He was their best player.
True.
He was a phenomenal, all-star caliber player.
Yes.
But some people question maybe his leadership, right? No one questioned his work
attitude. It was his attitude.
Exactly. Nobody questioned his work ethic. We all know that he worked really hard. He actually always showed up in good shape. He never showed up overweight. He always
showed up on time. He punched the clock.
He did his job in that regard, but people question his leadership. We know that he gets
guys
technical
to rally
fouls
behind him.
Yeah, we know he gets technical fouls, but he
has a lot of ejections.
The thing is, though, is that you don't want your leader to be the most emotional player on the court, in my opinion.
I get that. Absolutely.
And that's my only gripe with Russell Westbrook.
You think he's too emotional also?
Yes, because I want my...
Do you think he's holding his team back?
I wouldn't say that, but I'm saying that I want my... Because in the NBA, for better or for worse...
He does seem rude to the reporters and stuff off the court, and that, I feel like, can lead to problems.
For better or for worse, in the NBA, your best player has to be your leader. That's just it. It just is what it is. Right?
LeBron James, for example, doesn't really have any issues with the media or anything like that, and he's a born leader.
LeBron James can be emotional, but LeBron James knows how to keep his emotions in check.
Oh, absolutely. With the Lakers, he said he nearly cracked, but he kept his calm. He kept his demeanor. Most guys might have cracked if he was him. But the fact of the matter is, LeBron knows how to lead a team. He's done it his whole career.
Exactly. So that's my problem with Karl Anthony Towns is that, yes, I agree with you. He's the younger player between him and Jimmy Butler. He's younger. He's got the upside. He was the first pick. I get all that.
And centers are becoming more and more valuable as the years go on in the NBA.
My only issue is he the guy that you want leading your team, or can he lead a team to the playoffs in a big series,
Maybe if I'm the coach, I'm saying... You need to mature more if we're going to rally around you. If this team's going to get behind you, you got to mature more. I know he's young, so he has time to mature still.
He does.
So hopefully he does, but...
The writing is not on the wall. You're absolutely right. He could definitely mature.
Yeah, and I think someone just needs to straight up tell him that, though.
The problem is that Karl Anthony Towns... So the difference between Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns is that Karl Anthony Towns has been babied since he was 14,
He doesn't
15
take
years
criticism
old.
well.
No, he doesn't.
And and no one does. No one actually takes criticism well. It's a matter of how you react to it. It's a matter of how you... at the first reaction, you're going to take that, ouch. You're going to be upset about it. No doubt about it. But it's how you react afterwards once you really let that settle in.
And Jimmy Butler is older than Towns. I understand why they traded him, and people say that maybe his attitude was a problem. But he's just a guy that, as somebody who plays sports... I want to go to war with that guy. That's a guy that I can... Yeah, that's a guy that I know that if we get in a Game 7, he's leaving every ounce out there on the court, win, lose, or draw.
And you think Karl Anthony Towns will keep some with him?
I just think that Karl Anthony Towns isn't as tenacious, right? And I think that he's too emotional. He gets high and he gets low, and I don't want that.
I can understand what you're getting at, but again, he's very young.
Very young,
he
very
can
talented.
Still develop that.
No one is going. I'm not, and I won't question his talent.
He's a fantastic player.
Yes.
But again, this game is also mental, like you were saying.
Absolutely.
And he still needs to work on that. Like Kobe Bryant wasn't the most mental guy when he first came to the NBA, and then he became the most mental guy in the NBA.
And Kobe Bryant could be even killed, right? Like he's when there's a lot of noise around Kobe, he seemed to be above it. Like he could cancel
it out.
Exactly.
Not a lot of guys can do that. Like a lot of guys like attack Twitter and stuff when they hassle them. Mm-hmm. Kobe never did. Kobe never snapped at a fan or never. You could like say the worst things to the guy, throw stuff at him, and he would still just ignore you. Mm-hmm. That show. I'm sorry, but love the guy or hate a guy. That takes a lot of character.
He was a pro.
That takes a lot of character and being a very professional to do that. And when you see like a bunch of players in the NBA now, they attack fans.
Yes, Kevin Durant's very sensitive.
Yeah, Russell Westbrook is sensitive. They say like your mama's house, and they make fun of their mama and stuff like. Let them say what they want. If you give them attention, they won. That's what I learned as a kid, because I was bullied a lot as a kid growing up, and the thing is, if you react to them, and that's what I did as a young kid, I reacted to them. They win. They want to get a rise out of you. Mm-hmm. If a fan's attacking you verbally and you attack back, you're giving them the attention that you don't want them to have. They don't deserve that attention. You're giving them too much attention. You ignore them completely, you're not going to hear from them again.
Yeah.
Turn your back to them and walk away. I know that's such a classic saying, but especially in the NBA, you need to know that.
I wonder if...
And Kevin Durant, by the way, he's sensitive because everyone thinks he's a coward for going to... this is everyone else allegedly saying he's a coward for going there. Like
soft, yeah.
Yeah, and like he goes to a team that's already built.
Joining a team that beat him.
Going to a team that's already championship contenders, not helping a team become championship contenders. And he's letting that get to him. Why bother? Why bother talking to them about it? Why going on Twitter saying I don't care what you people think? Well, obviously you care because you posted on Twitter about it.
Do you think in 2 to 3 years that Karl Anthony Towns will be the leader that this team needs?
He could be, but
do you think he is? Because I'll say no. I mean, until he shows me otherwise, I'm going to say no because I know what I've seen.
I honestly don't know.
It's yet to be determined, but he's got all the talent in the world. Maybe he'll figure it out. So, what do you say we take a break?
Absolutely. When we get back, we will talk about the NBA games that have happened in the last couple of days, and we'll get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We are in the middle of doing a roundup of the NBA last couple of days. We just finished talking about the Jimmy Butler Blockbuster trade to the 76ers, which he should be playing tomorrow. I don't know why he wouldn't be. But
yes.
Let's go from, Sunday to now?
Sure. We can talk about any games.
Because nothing happened on... Yeah. Saturday there were some games, but nothing major. Like Warriors winning, the Nats.
Just notable games that you want to talk about, sure.
Yeah. For Sunday, I think one of the main games is the Trailblazers beating the Celtics 100-94.
Yeah, the Blazers have been impressive.
10-3.
Very hot.
And Nurkic had 18 points, 17 rebounds. That's a pretty impressive game. All things considered.
Definitely. He's kind of that other guy, Lillard, McCollum, and then it's Nurkic as the next
Jason
guy.
Tatum with a great game, 27 points, 8 rebounds himself.
Jason Tatum, I think he was the best pick of last year's draft.
As of right now, yes.
That's an interesting conversation. In fact, maybe we should have it for a second.
All right, but who else is playing well is De'Aaron Fox, but continue.
Yeah, I would say the top 3 players from that draft as of today, I think, are Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, De'Aaron Fox. Maybe. Sounds about right. What do you think?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So it was a really good draft, too. So, yeah, Blazers have been very, very impressive to start this season. You know this Western Conference. I mean, we all know how good it is. Right now, they're in second place in the West. Are you surprised by that?
Kinda, but I always thought they were going to be a playoff contender because they've always been in the playoffs picture.
I had them as my 8.
They've started off hot. I don't think they're going to be the 8th seed. I think they might be 5th or 4th.
They could be higher.
They're playing that well.
We'll see with some of these struggling
I don't want to
teams.
give them that higher because how early the season is. Mm-hmm. It's been 13 games. There's 82 in total, so we got a long ways to go.
Yeah, and some Western Conference teams have struggled a little bit, so as they ascend, as we assume that they will, we'll see if Portland kind of descends a little bit, but right now it's a great start. 13 games in, 10-3. That's about as good of a start as they could have wished for, those fans up in Portland. So, what other game would you like to talk about from Sunday?
From Sunday,
Bucks beat the Nuggets. That's impressive.
Yes, the Bucks. The Bucks might take the 1 seed in the East. To be honest with you, Brook Lopez had a great game. 28 points for him.
He tied an NBA record in that game too for most 3-pointers by a 7-foot player in NBA history.
3-pointers, 8. He had 1 steal and 2 blocks also.
You know, I talked about him before, I think last week. He's been a very underrated offseason move by Milwaukee.
He was, because of so many other great players like LeBron, for example, he was under the radar.
And he went to Milwaukee. Like, that's under radar city, right? So,
yeah.
28 points, yeah, like you mentioned.
It's funny we say that because the Brewers were just in the NLCS, and now this team's a potential time for
Milwaukee's just the place to be right now, I guess. How about the Lakers getting by the Hawks 107-106? You know, Lakers have now won 3 in a row, so they beat the Kings the night before. Do you think that they're back? Do you think that they're on the right track now, or do you think, they barely get by the Hawks, they beat the Kings who are on a back-to-back? Are you still waiting on them, or what?
I'm still waiting.
You're not sure if they're moving in the right direction yet, or if they're just kind of in the middle.
It's so hard to tell. To me, that is.
They play Portland Wednesday night.
That's a test.
Yes, that will actually be a really good game to see where they're at. A little test to see if they have kind of overcome some of those early season struggles, or if they're still in the thick of it. So, how about some games that happened last night? I want to talk about the Clippers, Warriors. First off,
yesterday, I was going to get into that, but yeah.
The Clippers won. No Curry for the Warriors. He has that groin injury. Durant fouls out. The Clippers won in overtime, 121-116. What was notable for me is how excited Clippers owner Steve Ballmer was after that game. It was if they had won Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. Like, I get it, man. You're happy that...
Okay, I don't know what that was.
That was, I think, a horn from a fire engine.
Why is it here?
I have no idea. That was funny. I think even he's excited about the Clippers win against the Warriors, to be honest with you. But, I don't really get it. Why I get they were happy that they won the game. Don't get me wrong. But it was like, man, this is a regular season game. This is game 14 of the season. Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit,
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, though? Do you think that the Clippers, though, at 8-5, do you think this 8-5 start is real, or do you think they're kind of playing above their heads right now?
You know what? It seems like it's real, doesn't it? They've been playing at a very high level, like at a surprisingly high level, and they've been very impressive.
I think we could say that about a few teams in the Western Conference at this point, right?
Like the Western Conference just got tougher. How is that possible? Like, other teams have been tough. Like, even the Sacramento Kings are playing at a fast-paced, high-level action.
The Clippers, the Kings, and the Grizzlies are kind of like throwing a wrench in this whole operation.
I don't understand anymore, man.
The Thunder and the Rockets are like, man, what the heck?
Yeah, like, the Rockets are struggling, and them are playing extremely well. Like, this Western Conference just got even better. I don't know how that could have happened, but it did.
Clippers are 8-5. They just beat the Warriors. I get it. No Curry, but still. They've been impressive so far. For me, though, Jeff, I'm going to say that they're playing a little bit above their head right now. I think they're a solid team. I don't think they're a playoff team, though. If I had to guess, I'd say they finish about 10th in the West. 10th or 11th, but probably 10th. But, if they keep this up, if they can continue to play with teams like the Warriors night in, night out, get a win here and there, they could absolutely be a playoff team. Problem is, how many wins will it take to get in the playoffs in the West this year?
80 out of 82. Everyone's going like 80. Yeah, you know what I mean. It seems like it's gonna be. It feels like you need at least like 60 wins to even make it in the 8th seed in the NBA in the Western.
But realistically, what do you think? Like 46?
40 for the over under, I would say you need at least I would say 48. I know that's a lot, but I think 48 wins will get you an 8th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not even that bad.
That would be, I don't know. That would be a lot. If you said 48?
Yeah. So if...
Yeah. Oh, man.
You're 48-34. That would be the record you need.
That would get you the 5th seed in the East of last year. 48-34 last year. Yeah, that's about right. The Timberwolves had 47 wins last year and were the 8th seed. So it's about right. Maybe 48 is the number. I thought that was a little bit high, but you know what? The way this is shaping out, it doesn't appear that way. Yeah. I'm with you on that. So
that's just how tough it is in reality, right?
This Western Conference right now is absolute crazy. And we talked about it. Let's talk about, since we're on this subject, you just mentioned the Kings. They beat the Spurs last night. Like, the Spurs lose to Sacramento, so now you're looking at a Spurs team that's 7-5, a Kings team that's 8-6. It's just creating more drama. We're building this drama in the Western Conference. The Jazz beat the Grizzlies last night, 96-88. Thunder get another win last night, so they're getting closer as they started off so terribly, but they're 8-5 now. Like, all of a sudden, their early season struggles seem to be behind them. Man, as of right now in the Western Conference, Jeff, there's only 4 teams that have losing records, and one of those teams is Rockets, and we expect them to get back, even if they're not as good as last year. I think we can both assume that they'll have a winning record. Mm-hmm. When you look at the East, though, it's a different story. Right now in the West, there's 3 teams.
Does it feel like it got weaker?
Yeah, because in the West right now, there's 3 teams that are above 500 who are currently not in the playoffs if they started today. In the East, 2 teams in the playoffs that are under 500. Actually, one that's 500.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that they should do there was talk about doing this years ago. I'm not sure they're even talking about it. But a format of just the top 16 teams with the 16 records just face each other? Like, not by conference, just by overall record? Like 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, and so on and so forth?
I get why that's a thing. But my whole thing is, if they do that, then why even have conferences or divisions? Just have everybody play each other twice, and then...
That's basically what they already do, though. It just seems it's a little more... Maybe it feels more in order. It feels more...
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems kind of weird.
I don't know. It just feels
the travel thing is the problem there, right?
But yeah, but wouldn't it just feel like it'd be a little more fair? just for other teams, like because there's so many times where a Western Conference team gets snubbed, and you see an Eastern Conference team that has like 30 wins get in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Well, like, I know 30 wins is exaggerating, of course, but
don't you think like here in a couple of years or at some point it'll shift, and then it'll be the Eastern Conference that has like all the good teams? Mm-hmm. You know, maybe in like 3 or 4 years, like the Eastern Conference has 10 solid teams, and the West has like 6 good teams and some poor teams after that. So I don't know.
I just maybe just God, I just wish there was a format this could work. You know.
It is interesting. It's a never-ending debate between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. But as we look at the Eastern Conference right now, there are 6 teams with 5 or less wins, including the 1-win Cavaliers team. Yeah, in the West, Phoenix is at 2-11, but Minnesota, Dallas, and Houston have 5 wins. Those are the next bottom teams. So we can already see that the Western Conference is very, very strong, and it only took 12, 13 games in the season to see that big discrepancy between the two.
Yeah, but this has just been a crazy start to the season, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Like the teams you expect to do well are not doing well, and teams you're expecting just to be on the bottom or on the top. It feels like it's like an alternate universe we're in right now.
As of right now, the Jazz, the Lakers, the Pelicans, and the Rockets would not be in the playoffs.
And those are the teams that's like the top. That should be the top of the conference.
Yeah, and those teams would definitely be in the playoffs in the East.
That's incredible to me. But again, this is worth, 13, 14 games in the season?
Sure.
We got a long ways to go, but still it's insane how the season started off like this. The season started off upside down.
Yeah.
Especially in the West. The East, maybe not so much, but the West especially.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Again, we just talked about how the West is like become even better than it was before, and the East is kind of even getting weaker. Almost.
And Boston is 7-6 right now, which is an odd start.
Like
to
I'm
their
standing
season.
by my point that the East might be even weaker than we thought, and the West is getting stronger.
Absolutely.
And anything else about this?
Nope. I think we should go to a break. Come back, talk about Carmelo.
Yes, we will talk about Carmelo Anthony when we return.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We talked about some of the key games and rankings of the NBA season so far. Now we're going to the Carmelo Anthony story of him most likely no longer being a Houston Rocket.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Coaches and players alike have said they probably just saw their last game with Carmelo in a Rockets uniform.
Some people say that he is done. You are correct.
Yes, and the question now remains... where does he go now? What's he go from here?
That I'm not sure. At this time, at this juncture in his career, it's very hard to see what teams would want him, and it's hard to envision what teams he'd want to go to because, I mean, it seems like he wants to win, right? Like he went to the Rockets trying to win a championship. This marriage is obviously not working out. But it's really hard to determine who would be interested in him that he would be interested in. I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
I think he's got to settle with whoever team takes him, you know? It's one of those things.
Do you think he will, though, or do you think he'd opt to just retire or sit out?
I don't think he'll retire. I think it's one of those lines where Carmelo's just gotta take what he can get, you know? Like, he's not gonna get what he really wants or thinks he deserves. He's gonna get a minimum offer. I think that's how I see it. And he's not gonna go to a team he wants to, because those teams are so good that don't really need him right now.
I think that the way that he plays makes him very unsuitable for many, many basketball teams, particularly the teams that run. The one thing that the Rockets... So this is really odd, Jeff. Do you know that the Rockets are one of the slowest paced teams in the NBA all of a sudden?
Yeah, you know, now that I mention it, like watching them, they're in molasses.
They're slower than the Spurs. They are almost the slowest team in the NBA based on pace numbers. So, with that being said, he's already not a good fit on a team that plays in a slower style. And you would think that that's Carmelo's game nowadays, that he's not going to be playing with a team that's running all over the court, making things happen. I think we can both assume that his best ability is playing for a team at a slower pace. So, with that being said... Who are some of the teams? The Spurs? I don't see that happening. Maybe the Nuggets. Maybe Memphis? Maybe Carmelo Memphis. They're the slowest paced team in the NBA. Maybe they want to add a shooter. Could you see them maybe possibly? Because they are right now like in playoff contention, like very, very early. But like maybe they want to add another piece, right? Like a bench scorer.
Yeah, but he's going to want a starting role. That's the problem. He thinks he's a starting role player, but in reality, he's going to be a bench player.
Yeah, I mean...
I think he has to accept the fact that he's not as good as he used to be.
Well, do you think he's accepted it this... Do you think that he's accepted it this season so far that he's a bench player? We know that he said going in he wasn't, but now he is, and maybe at this point it kind of humbled him a little bit.
You really don't know what's going through his head, because it seems like there's mixed signals there, to me at least. And overall, I think if I'm Carmelo Anthony, I'm taking any job I can get, and I'm going to just do my best to try to play my part and then go from there to get back to a high level and where I can be a starter and can get a lot of money. See what I'm getting at?
I understand. I think that the best fit for him, if I had to look right now, and I have no idea if this team is interested in him whatsoever, but I think the best fit if he leaves is the Memphis Grizzlies. I know I mentioned them earlier. They play at the slowest pace. Their starting small forward is Kyle Anderson. Chandler Parsons is also on their team, who has been incredibly underwhelming, always hurt. He didn't play last night again because of knee soreness. They don't really have a reliable three off the bench. What do you think about that? What do you think about Carmelo fitting in with Memphis?
Like you said, like a slow team could benefit him.
Mm-hmm.
And with this move, you can see that maybe Memphis is the right move, or maybe he should go to a team like that will there's maybe more faster pace, so he can try to what's the word I'm looking for? Try to blend in or try to adapt to the faster pace of the NBA style. You see what I'm getting?
You think that's him though at his age?
I don't know, but honestly, if I'm him, I'm willing to try everything. You know, you just got to go with the punches.
Sure. I don't really know if there's a good fit.
Reality's starting to hit him.
I don't really know if there's a good fit, to be honest with you. I mentioned Memphis, and they could be a team that's like, no, we don't even want you. Indiana is also an interesting team. They played a very slow pace. The problem is, though, is that both of these teams, although they play at a slower pace, they're defensive-minded. Carmelo Anthony is not a guy that you put into the game with a defensive-first approach. He is a guy that is a volume shooter. And if he's not with the program defending, he may not be a good fit, and these teams may not be interested, because currently Memphis and Indiana are two teams that are winning basketball teams at this moment. You don't really want to bring in a guy who's not on board with what you're trying to do.
True, but if I'm him, I might be looking more at an Eastern Conference team, just little weaker schedule type of thing, than a Western Conference team.
Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. If you're an NBA GM, okay. And I'm not asking you about, let's disregard the roster that you currently have, okay? But let's just say that you're scouring out there looking for talent. Would you be interested in a Carmelo Anthony at this stage of his career? Let's say you're just average at the position, so there is a need. You know what I mean?
Can I offer him let's say
money's not an issue.
Money's not an issue?
No, because he's going to get paid by Houston. He'll play for the minimum. He says he'll play for the minimum.
I'll sign him to the minimum.
So you would be interested in him,
but he's got to do a bench roll. He's got to accept the bench roll.
Are you worried that he will mess up your team chemistry?
I would. Well, if I'm a GM, wouldn't you talk to the players first to see if they want him there?
Sure. And the coach, of course, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the players are just as important as the coach because of the chemistry and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, if they're on board with it, sure, why not? But if they're hesitant, then we would talk about it. We might have a meeting with Carmelo or something like that. But we would take this we would take this with how my team, how my coach would react to it, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, honestly, I think what you're saying, I can understand. But me personally, I wouldn't even touch him. I just don't think the value is there. Like, the upside for me is like what? He might have a good game every 5th or 6th game where he shoots 8 or 9 long twos and 4 or 5 go in and he has 15 points and you win the game. But for me, like, I don't want to have a guy coming off my bench who's a volume shooter, who's kind of a black hole on offense. I want somebody that plays tough defense. I want somebody who takes their shot, but I just don't want that guy to dominate my second unit, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't want Carmelo Anthony to be the star of my bench. Like, I really don't. Mm-hmm. Like, if he can come in and
but
pass.
How weak is your bench is the ultimate question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're speaking very general, right? Like, some teams might have
a very weak bench.
Yeah, some teams might have 2 G League type players on their bench that they're like
10-day contracts.
Yeah,
know?
I agree. So I don't know, man. I just think that at this stage, I think if I'm Carmelo, I just hang it up. Honestly, like, I think he's just.
I don't think he's accepted that yet, though.
I don't think he's helping his legacy. Not that that's at the forefront of his mind.
It's now just about money. That's my honest opinion about that.
Like, I think we can both agree he's a Hall of Famer. Like, he'll make the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I think he's had
part of a draft class that like a majority of them will be in the Hall of Fame.
I'll be honest, though. I think that he's had an underwhelming career based on what I saw in his first couple years in the NBA. I kind of feel like he never really progressed to the next level of stardom, the next level of franchise player. Because he's been a really, really, really good player for quite some time, but the game has kind of passed him up. The NBA now, we know, 3-point shooting is required. You know, guys that play the 3 nowadays...
You need to shoot like 10 to 15 threes a game.
Like the whole term 3-and-D, right? A guy that can shoot threes like Robert Covington, who just got traded to the Timberwolves. He's a great wing defender, and he's a guy who could shoot a 3. Carmelo is not either one of those things.
No, he's not.
But that's kind of the way that the NBA has trended over the last few years.
Honestly, I can see him going to a not so high in the market team just for the name Carmelo Anthony, because that's a household name now.
Mm-hmm. How about going to... I would say that the Eastern Conference is better for him. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe like a team in the middle of the pack. What do you think about that? Like a team maybe that they're 500 or close to 500. I don't know. Maybe Detroit?
Yeah.
Brooklyn? Orlando?
I could see Orlando.
Miami?
Orlando. Give me Orlando.
Yeah, see, like one of those teams.
Because I'm not gonna lie, they're lacking talent, and they could use a guy like him.
And those are teams too that you don't really care about, like how they play. Like, okay, maybe they play fast, or maybe they, you know what I mean. But like, they just need another scorer. Like, regardless, it might be a bad fit, but he at least adds something.
Miami is possible, but
are you saying that because Miami is a big retirement community?
Yes, but I'm also saying that because Dwayne Wade's there, and they could have ended together holding hands at the end of the day.
Oh God! Imagine a lineup with Wade and Carmelo on the court together. Yikes!
I mean, if that was like 5 years ago, then
yeah, great
exciting,
team.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, what do you say we go to a break? When we come back, some interesting news in the NBA, some injury news. We'll talk about some news and notes around the league when we come back.
Okay.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast for the final segment of the day. And now we finished talking about Carmelo Anthony's little departure, most likely from the Houston Rockets. Now we're moving on to other aspects of the basketball world. Did you have something you want to discuss, or should we go? Okay.
So last night we saw that devastating injury, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can check out Twitter if you'd like.
In mind, if you're squeamish, it's pretty gruesome.
So, Karis LeVert on Brooklyn Nets, he suffered a pretty gruesome injury last night. Kind of looked a lot like that injury to Gordon Hayward last year.
Where that one was almost like completely turned 180 degrees.
Yeah, maybe on a slightly less scale, but definitely if you're of the faint of heart, you should take note and maybe avoid this video, but Karis LeVert, it looked like he suffered maybe a compound fracture. However, Jeff, good news today. He actually only suffered a dislocation. He did not break a bone. He has some moderate ligament damage. He will be out for a couple months, it sounds like, but he did not break his leg. He did not suffer a horrendous break like
Isn't
Hayward.
that incredible?
Hey, Jeff, could you say that this was crisis LeVerted?
Get out. No, I'm serious. Get out of the studio.
Get it? Averted, LeVerted?
No, just leave.
And his name is Karis?
Stop
Karis
it.
LeVerted?
Shut up.
All right.
Shut it. Shut it.
You know what? These puns write themselves, okay? Don't shoot the messenger. However, that's nice to see, though, because you see a injury like that and you're thinking, wow, this guy just suffered a career-ending or a career-threatening injury, right? I mean, That's like a career-threatening injury. Maybe he comes back, maybe not. Maybe comes back not as good. But, hey, he's got ligament damage, no breaks. I think that's awesome. But, Jeff, you had an interesting new note about Derrick Rose.
Oh, yes, about the injuries and all that's happened.
Yeah, tell us about it.
He's been on the court or just in the game area where Gordon got hurt. Paul George hurt his ankle in that USA game.
Yeah, broke his leg.
Where that was the one. That was probably the nastiest one. Mm-hmm. Or Gordon's out. And now this injury, LeVert's injury. He's been there all three times where someone's leg is like snapped in two.
He probably was in attendance for that Louisville game, too, where that kid broke his leg and it snapped out of his...
Kevin Ware?
Yeah, snapped out of his...
that was his name, Kevin Ware. That sounds
I think you're absolutely right. Snapped out of his skin.
You mean there's a picture of the bone legitimately sticking out?
Oh, God. That you said nastiest one. I know that's not NBA, but yeah. I know it's not NBA, but that one's...
You remember where he lifted up his leg and it was just skin?
Oh, God.
And the guy's reaction... The player's reaction to it was delayed, going, is he... Oh, my... Because... The court was elevated, too.
His teammates looked like they were going to start throwing up.
His teammates were eye level of him, too, because the court was elevated.
Why are we doing this to ourselves, thinking about these squeamish things?
I actually have a strong stomach, so I can take it.
So, I think you were saying something about Derrick Rose being cursed.
Yes, he's absolutely cursed. Or not, okay, not cursed.
He is a curse.
He could be a bad luck charm.
Do you think that Jimmy Butler requested a trade because he wanted to get away from Derrick Rose so he didn't suffer a career-ending injury?
He somehow survived, which is his career at least.
So you're saying he got out at the right time?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know if he's a curse. I don't know if he's cursed. But Derrick Rose is someone I might want to avoid in life, you know?
Well, not in life. I mean...
airplanes, basketball games.
I don't think he's going to be on planes that crash. Come on now.
Oh, God. Now we're just wandering in terrible territory right now. Let's just go backwards. Derrick Rose, super nice guy. Some unfortunate events have happened in his presence, which are actually incredible when you think about it. Not incredible in a good way, just incredible. The odds to be in attendance or a part of those
That's
things.
got to be like 1 in a million, right? Like somewhere absurd like that?
Probably.
I mean, I feel bad for the guy, too. Like...
Mm-hmm. So, I know we talked about the Jimmy Butler trade, but do you think that this move pushes the Sixers into the conversation of the Celtics, Raptors? I know the Celtics are struggling, but we expect them to be back. The Raptors and the Bucks. Does this move put them finally into that category, into that echelon of teams?
I mean, it's a very good chance. But again, those 3 teams are at another level, in my opinion. That that anything could help, totally, no doubt about it. But I'm going to wait till I say they're at that level.
Yeah.
Because we don't know yet. We honestly don't know yet.
Do you think Butler was the right piece, though, for this young team?
It doesn't hurt. I think it definitely boosts them up a little bit because he's been playing well, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I think of the fact that this team it did get an upgrade, in my opinion. They didn't really sacrifice much for that upgrade, too.
They didn't. They kept all of their young pieces, and they didn't surrender a first-round pick.
How on earth did the 76ers get away with robbery?
Yeah. Thibodeau's pretty happy about the deal. I mean, he said that, they got what they were looking for, and he said that they were actually very happy with getting that second-round pick.
Yeah, I think he's full of it.
That's an interesting point of view to say that we're happy with the second-round pick. Like, he said the pick aspect was important, that they were happy with it. I mean, come on, it's a second-round pick. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, the 50th player in the draft? Like, come on, But
it's not important. Well, I mean, not important, but it's not as crucial as a first-round pick.
Absolutely not. And I love the trade for the 76ers because you add a veteran presence to that young locker room. And I just think that's exactly what the Sixers need at this point. You have Embiid, you have Simmons. It's a nice boost to an already young and talented team, even Fultz. Maybe Butler's the guy that Fultz needs to kind of kick him in a gear. Are you worried about Jimmy Butler's attitude, though, and his presence kind of overshadowing them?
He seems motivated to say, this isn't who I am. I'm not a tough player to play with, and I'll prove it with the 76ers. He kind of has said that. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that is the what's the word I'm looking for? That is the key factor in this.
Yes.
Is he's trying to prove that he's this guy. He's trying to prove that he's a good player to play with. He's a good player to rally behind. He can be a team player.
I love it. I think he's a grinder. Like, for me, that's what the Sixers need, right? Like, they need somebody to come in there and kind of just be, like, the glue. And I think that Jimmy Butler will be that presence for them. But before we end the show today, we got to talk about the new college basketball rankings. Who do you think's number 1?
Duke. Clearly Duke. And I'm right. I have them right here.
Are you surprised?
Not at all.
Not at all, huh?
Let's just go in order, shall we?
Hold on. Can we just say thanks to Duke for taking it easy on Army? Can we just, appreciate that? They only beat them by 22 points. It could have been.
The Zion did block one of them into demolish.
Into oblivion?
Yeah.
But, I mean, let's be real. If Duke really wanted to, I think they could have won that game by 50.
They probably could have. Anyways, can I go over the
Please
top
do.
We'll talk about each team. Number 1's Duke, obviously. Number 2 is Kansas, who dropped from number 1 to number 2 because of how good Duke is playing, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Duke just looks like the more dominant team. Kansas is great, no doubt about it. Gonzaga at number 3, which sounds like that's usually where they always are. Not number 1 or 2. They're usually
and
number
they'll
3.
stay there because they don't play anybody.
Yeah. Virginia at number 4, which is after that disappointing loss in the tournament, they want to bounce back, and they didn't lose many guys in the draft, did they?
I don't believe so, no.
No, a lot of guys are coming back. Tennessee at number 5, they've been playing very well. They have a good 3-hit combo over there that have been just balling it out. Nevada at a surprising number 6.
That, my friend, is interesting because in my lifetime, I don't ever remember them even being ranked other than like last year, you know? Like when I was younger.
That's why I love like college sports, because the most random teams get ranked and you're like, good for them. You know,
they're higher than what, North Carolina, right?
North Carolina is number 7. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, number 7.
That's crazy though. That
and
Nevada
Villanova
is over them.
And Kentucky and these great teams. The other teams are kind of straightforward. North Carolina is next. Then number 8 is Villanova. Number 9 is Auburn. Number 10 is Kentucky after their loss, which seems kind of generous. Michigan State's at number 11. Kansas State's at number 12. 13 is Oregon. 14 is Florida State. 15 is Syracuse. 16 is Virginia Tech. 17 is Mississippi State. 18 is Michigan. 19 is Clemson. 20 is UCLA, 21 is TCU, 23 is LSU, 24 is Purdue. I'm sorry, I lost my track. I lost the number. Number 25 is Buffalo, number 24 is Marquette, number 23 is Purdue, number 22 is LSU, number 21 is TCU, and number 20 is UCLA.
You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Duke's next game is against Eastern Michigan.
We might see a murder take place.
Right now, on the ticket market, the secondary ticket market, like Ticketmaster and StubHub, the lowest ticket is $178.
For that game? For number 1 versus number nothing?
That's the lowest ticket price. You can't get a ticket that expensive in the NBA right now, like at any team.
But it's Duke versus ranked 179
for Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they're actually
What the
179.
heck will those tickets be when they play UNC at home?
Those prices are going to be absurd. North Carolina versus Duke, are you kidding me? Especially how good Duke is right now, and North Carolina's no joke themselves. Like, you can't get better than that. And it's great. It's weird always to see, like, college football and college basketball are so different in rankings, because Duke and North Carolina would never be this close to, like, these dominative teams. But yet, in basketball, they are.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until February the 20th.
Oh, that's so far away.
February the 20th is when UNC will make their way to Duke. Duke does play Virginia, though, also in February, because you know how strong that conference is. So they will.
That's the basketball conference.
Yeah.
It's called the basketball conference for a reason.
As of right now, as of the rankings today, Duke does not play a ranked opponent until January.
Okay.
January 5th, Clemson, who's currently ranked 19th, so we'll see what happens. But in that month, they do play Florida State. They do play Syracuse, Virginia. Those are all ranked teams. In February, they do play North Carolina. Virginia again, of course, as they play some of those teams twice in their conference. Syracuse again, Virginia Tech. Those are all ranked teams. And then they finish the season before the ACC tournament against North Carolina. That game will be on the road. But I just found that incredibly interesting that ticket prices for Duke basketball are at an insane level against Eastern Michigan in November.
It is Duke at home, so it makes sense.
It makes sense, but are you kidding me? Like, if I would have asked you how much do you think the tickets are, what would you have said?
$40. $40?
$40, exactly. All right, well, I think that's it for today.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us for the Basketball Podcast. We have basketball once again on Thursday, but tune us in tomorrow. We're doing football and soccer on that and sports as always every day. But tune us in, and we will see you anytime you want to listen to us. Later.
Late.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmc.com. GSMCpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.